This is a coal ash sinkhole that has been sitting open for almost 4 years now. There's toxins across Highway 150 in the creek, headed towards the neighborhoods back behind here. A year ago, they knew it was at least 1,000 feet off the property. That's coal ash. That black and gray that you're seeing there, that's coal ash, people. It's radioactive. It has all kinds of toxins in it that can cause cancers and just all kinds of other diseases.
What's up, y'all? This is Cancer Cluster Army, North Carolina. I'm in Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm at Reed Creek. Now, Reed Creek is contaminated with coal ash from the Tire Masters coal ash sinkhole. There has been coal ash in Reed Creek since at least 2020, and it goes for over a mile. Duke Energy supposedly has cleaned 40 tons of coal ash out of Reed Creek so far. Reed Creek goes through a few different neighborhoods and houses back right up to it where children play. In this park, people come along walking and exercising. I've heard children go into the creek and make mud pies. Now, we have taken samples from further up the Reed Creek, which were tested by Duke University scientists working with Earth Justice, and the scientists proved their radium levels were over 4 times higher than safe in the coal ash taken from this creek a little further up. Well, last week, the town of Mooresville was in the news that in August, they took bore samples out here at Reed Creek, somewhere in this area. I'm not sure exactly where. And they're saying that they did not find anything. So, we decided to come out here with the Geiger counters. This is our second time up here. We were out here yesterday. I'm seeing consistent low, higher levels, if that makes sense. Normal background radiation levels run between 4 to 9-ish. When we see coal ash, it's 17 to 18 and on up into the 20s. Every time we've tested those numbers at a coal ash field, it has turned out to be coal ash. And in this creek, it was coal ash. So here, through this grass, where I believe the coal ash has been in the creek since at least 2020, we know that for a fact. Well, this creek floods quite a bit. So when it floods, it brings things up. Now, further up the creek, I found a very large chunk of coal ash that was way up the bank, very far up the bank from the creek. So it only makes sense that it's carrying this stuff further and further out. We found high numbers in the easement on the other side of the creek. We were hitting 20s and 21s there. But all throughout here, okay, I'm hitting a 14.7 right now. That's a little high. That isn't a normal background radiation number. If I were taking samples out here, I might would take a sample from right here. That should not be reading 14. It's not an alarming level, but it is higher than normal. But when we checked yesterday, we found levels from 11 through 13 all throughout here, all up into the backyards. All the way up to the backyards, I was finding 12s and 13s. The only area that we did not hit 11s and 13s was when we got to the very back area and went up into the elevation where the floodwaters probably would not have been. Then we fell into the 8s and 9s, which are a more normal level. So we found something out here yesterday I would like to show you. And I don't understand why, if they were doing bore samples out here, if the town was out here doing that, then why didn't they also walk over to the edge of that creek that's contaminated with the coal ash and say, gosh, do I see anything gray in this creek? Like no one thought to do that? Come along, we're going to show you what we found. We're getting levels of above 12, 12s to 14, 15. That's the levels we're seeing when coal ash is diluted or it is down in the ground farther, like 18 inches or further. You get levels at slightly higher readings. At 17 and 18 is when we're finding coal ash that is exposed or within 4 or 5 inches above the surface level. Now this is a different situation because the actual fill for this site is actually a mile that way, almost half a mile, I would say, from here. That's the Tire Masters coal ash sinkhole. Well, for 5 years at least, that coal ash has been coming down this creek towards Lake Norman. So we came out here looking for it, and I can't say that any of this in this section is coal ash for sure until we test it with the scientists, figure out how to do that. But we have tested coal ash a little further up the creek, and it was confirmed as coal ash, and it was confirmed as being high levels of radium. So now we're in Reed Creek Park, and we're definitely seeing suspect gray material in the creek. Okay, I'm at Reed Creek Park, and I'm only a few feet into the woods. Those are homes right there. As you can see, I walked right. That's a pathway. And right here is Reed Creek Park, the Reed Creek, which is contaminated with coal ash. Can you spot the coal ash yet? We got down in there with the Geiger counter and tested it, and we were hitting 17s and 19s. It's all along the wall there. We need to get a sample of it and confirm it's ash through a scientist. I'm very sure they'll find high levels of radium, just like we did farther up the creek, about half a mile. If that. Now look right over here. I see more. All in the side there. That's all gray. I don't know how well my phone's going to show it, but that's 2-3 feet of gray embedded into the embankment there in that little curve where the creek's forced to turn. So imagine when it's flooded, it's forced the ash up against that wall embankment there. And that's exactly what we were seeing farther up the creek in closer to the coal ash sinkhole at the Tire Masters. Same thing. And we tested that ash, and it came back with levels of radium-226 and 228 4 times higher than safe. Now, I've had someone tell me that children were coming into this creek and making gray mud pies. Well, this is where they were doing it, or one of the areas possibly, my friends. And this gray does not look right. And I want to know why the town of Mooresville came here and did bore samples over there in the grass, but they couldn't manage to walk the 4 feet to the creek like we just did and see that gray right there and say, hey, maybe we should test this weird looking gray stuff. No, they did bore samples and they said, no, we didn't find anything. Well, of course you didn't. That's not a structural fill. That's not a coal ash structural fill. When we tested, we found the actual ash and tested it because that's how the science works. So if Mooresville officials could please come back out here and test the possible coal ash that's right there, that anyone can walk right over here and see for themselves, please do so. Thank you.